Thanks for joining us here today for this ASM workshop on how to meet compliance and sustainability requirements for materials with Total Materia Greenline. ASM workshops encourage engagement throughout the presentation, so please feel free to type in your questions in the Q&A window, and we'll try to get your questions asked right away so that the presenter can respond to your questions while they're on the topic you're inquiring about. I'm Nate Bullcroft with ASM, and I will be today's moderator. Today's presenter is Natalia Stepanovic, and she will be joined by Andy Riley, both with Total Materia. ASM and Total Materia have partnered to bring the ASM Global Materials platform to our engineering and manufacturing communities. Today's workshop will feature Total Materia's Greenline product, and if you have interest in knowing more, please contact ASM and we can initiate the conversation. And with that, I'll turn it over to Natalia.
Wanted to say thanks, Nate, for introducing us to today's audience, and throughout the presentation, hopefully we'll get to what is Greenline and how Total Materia can help with your compliance and sustainability issues. We know that a lot of different corporations these days have initiatives, not just, okay, let's make the best product with maybe the cheapest materials, perhaps the most durable materials. But now compliance comes to play. Definitely a lot of fines could happen if we do not choose the most compliant, not the most compliant, but rather the compliant material. Of course, have to go through so many different regulations depending on where you're selling your product. But also now what comes into play is sustainability. And that is not just let's say a company initiative, but a view that many of us have to take to be able to make sustainable products. So let's say in the past, how the material selection process would have worked. And this is coming from my experience talking with customers. Of course, everyone on the call probably has a lot more experience than I do with choosing materials and with material science. But of course, materials engineers would be selecting maybe a couple of different options. Then simulation engineers would add in different material tests to make sure that the materials are durable in different conditions and so on and so forth. Of course, always doing quality checks, reverse engineering for a QC, QA, but also just making sure the material that was chosen is appropriate, again, for what is necessary. Supply chain, making sure that the material that has been chosen can be found locally to lessen cost, but also just makes it a lot easier when you're trying to find or create your product in different countries at different manufacturing plants, having those global equivalents. But of course, now we have compliance and sustainability. And what we thought at Total Materia, instead of going through this whole track and then later finding out after, months of work, even just a couple of days or hours of work, that the material that you chose and circled around the company is non-compliant, or there could be a greener material, that could definitely change the way material selection goes forward. And that's why we created Greenline. Of course, supplemented with our curated materials database, Horizon, which is also GMP if others have tested that before, maybe adding in your own internal information, filling in gaps with machine learning. But Greenline is the way to go to be able to do different bill of materials assessments, LCA calculations, as well as simply finding compliance statuses for different materials, comparing equivalents, and so on and so forth. So that's what Greenline is. And just to go in a little bit more depth on all the different topics that we could cover with Greenline. What we try to do is really create a solution that has compliance and sustainability in mind when making responsible material selection decisions. It is a great tool to help you achieve regulatory compliance, and of course, adhering to all those international standards like you've been doing up till now, minimizing delays, of course, recalls by not just having all those delays, as I mentioned, but fines and being able to optimize your supply chain efficiently. And then finally, as I'll keep mentioning throughout the presentation, redefining material selection with greener alternatives when necessary or when it is possible. And with all of that, Greenline encompasses a couple of different tools within the solution. Firstly, of course, we have substance and compliance information. We could verify different materials and different substances against different regulations, bill of materials assessment, life cycle assessment from cradle to gate. That's how we assess that. And we utilize different information from a company called EcoInvent. And of course, we could go through all this in much more detail. If you have any questions, please ask, but also you could always give us a call after the webinar. You could compare different materials and different compliance statuses all at once. And most importantly, share links and reports with teams around you. You might think, how could Greenline, with all these different amazing tools, help my organization? And it could help in different ways. First of all, who can it help? Of course, compliance teams, sustainability teams, and also product management to make sure all the different materials selected are compliant and are the greenest choice. You probably all know why, but just to kind of reiterate is being able to sell it into your product into different markets, helping with sourcing all those different materials and adhering to different corporate values. How? We'll go over all of that in the demo just in a couple of minutes, but making sure you have a list of pre-approved materials. If you've already done the work on finding all that different material information, why would you have to do it again? With Greenline, you could share all that information with your team at once, so then you don't go over the same issues later. Of course, being able to track the current legislation. It's constantly changing. We have a team of, I believe, 6 engineers that look at all the different regulations, have different alerts to make sure all the material information you're getting and compliance data that you're getting is up to date. We do monthly updates. Of course, substance lists, new substances being added on all the time, and the compliance bit. And with all of that in mind, it's very important to supply your team with compliant information. Of course, Greenline might be used by, of course, compliance engineers, sustainability folks, and also product managers. But the whole point of Greenline, and as I mentioned, you're able to share all of that information with your team, is for everyone within the organization to get the compliant data. As going back on the first slide, we mentioned all the different ways an organization might be selecting those materials. And in reality, if you're not pushing all that information throughout the organization, it doesn't make sense. So that's why we created all those different tools, which we're going to get into now. So you can share all the information that you find, get the most up-to-date data in terms of compliance, substance lists, and of course, being able to do those LCA calculations. So I'm just going to exit out of the presentation and get into Greenline. I see that there is a question here. Oh, that is just please type in any questions. Just wanted to make sure before we got started. So you probably have seen this before for GMP. Our homepage is essentially the same. Being able to search for over 700,000 materials does help when you're doing all your different compliance and LCA checks. I have a couple of pre-made searches and lists just to speed up the webinar, because I could go on and on about all the functionalities we have at Total Materia and how it could connect with Greenline. But for the sake of the webinar today, we're going to get into Greenline, and I'm going to give you a little bit of information on all the different aspects we cover. And please, if you have any questions, go ahead. So we cover material compliance information, substance information, bill of materials, LCA calculations, as well as something that we call compliance assessor, which you'll see what it is in a couple of moments. Just as a basic tool, if you wanted to quickly search for, let's say, all the different biocompatible polymers we have in Total Materia. The best way to do that would go under Greenline, material search, click on the regulation. So I'm going to type in, you can see how many different countries we cover. Let's say EU biocompatibility requirements, select polymers, and then go on from there. So from this list of 339 materials, you could add them to Material List Builder to later on forward to an advanced search, maybe see, okay, which of these materials have stress strain curves, specific mechanical and physical properties, so on and so forth. So we do create all those different integrations available within the tool to really help you find the most optimal material for your design, but also being able to see, okay, what is all the other information out there in terms of material properties. So it's very straightforward here. And just quickly before we get to the good parts, if you wanted to find a list of substances, instead of being able to search for all the substances, you could click on substances of very high concern.
Hey, Natalia,
Yeah.
really quick, we got a question in. Does it support IMDS?
No, but we're working on something, right, Andy?
So essentially, for those people who don't know, IMDS is a methodology of looking at compliance in the automotive industry. It's been around for quite a few years, and it's not just covering what substances are in a material, but it also allows the producer to have some hidden secret sources as well. So it's not fully declared. What we can do is connect the IMDS declaration number and the statement number to our internal materials database. So Natalia may mention it later. It's a nice thing called integrator. And that way we can track the IMDS declaration, but we don't do IMDS calculation. The piece that we do have, and it's actually very close to what, or in fact you can see it on the screen, we have the GADSL list as well of materials. Now, as you may know, that is the follow-up regulation to IMDS as well. But yes, we can help you track with IMDS, but we are not extracting from it, if that makes sense. Sorry, Nat, over to you.
Thanks, Andy. You're always better at answering that question. Then, under substances, a very clear list of all the different inventory lists and so on and so forth. So with materials and the substance tab, that's where you could get all that compliance information. But of course, sometimes you have a list of maybe metallic materials that usually don't have those compliance declarations on their producer data sheets. Definitely not those metals from standards. That's where Compliance Assessor comes in. So I have a safe search from before that I used. I know I didn't have a lot of tasks showing you how you could actually search for materials in Total Materia, but I do have a safe search from an advanced search. And I'm going to load it up so I can show you what it looks like. DIN or GB standard, structural and constructional steel at a certain yield, tensile strength, impact, and modulus of elasticity. And of course, if I go into the material, on the right-hand side, usually for non-metallics, you'll see a compliance tab, like what I just did on the search. That's where you would get that information. But for metals, one thing that's great is that we do get the chemical composition, but unfortunately, nothing on compliance. That's where Compliance Assessor comes into play. So I'm just going to go back to the search. I'm going to add the list of materials to something called Material List Builder, where you could essentially save different materials, and most importantly for Greenline, add them to Compliance Assessor and LCA, so you could do your calculations using those eco-invent numbers. So I'm going to quickly check these 19 materials. Are they compliant or not? Well, I forgot that this saved, so let's go back and act like you didn't just see me add in those specific regulations, because I had a bit of a story to it. So you get your list of 19 materials here. And let's say I wanted to quickly check if these materials are REACH and RoHS compliant. All I need to do is search for the regulation over here. Let's say Article 59 for substances of very high concern, and RoHS, or RoHS as some people like to call it, 2015. So I'm going to click on Assess, and great, all these materials are compliant to REACH and RoHS. And there's two different ways you could even view the materials. You could go on a simple table view to quickly see, okay, are all these materials compliant? Perfect. My job here is done. You could even switch the specific conditions here. A lot of different metallic materials in our solution have different standards associated with the same material. So then you could play around with that, save it, change it around. And if you wanted to see if one of these materials had, let's say, an American equivalent, so ASTM or ASME, yeah, that's the one. You could search under the cross-reference and an equivalent material as well. You could see each material listed below contains at least one chemical composition that is compliant, which is great. So then you could even add those equivalents, switch them up if you want to quickly see, okay, if I'm going to sell my product as well in the States, do I need to completely change the material, or is there an equivalent that is also compliant? So that's, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, finish your thought, and then we've got a few questions I want to propose.
Great. I just, before you saw my last tab, I just wanted to quickly show you, let's say as an engineer, you wanted to see if the material is compliant to California Proposition 65. Click on Assess, and then you would see it is not, and that's why we have the red symbol here now, because it's not compliant to at least one of those regulations. And if I go to the vertical view, I could see why it's not, and of course, because we have a nickel content in each of these materials. You know, from here, you could always save the search, export the results into Excel, so then you could quickly, again, share all that information with your other team members. Nate, you could go ahead.
Awesome. Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Had a follow-up question regarding the IMDS clarification that Andy mentioned.
Sure, yeah.
So you're saying that means we can ensure compliance to IMDS through your portal? Just a clarifying question.
Yeah, so essentially you don't comply with IMDS, you declare in IMDS. So what that is it's a way of telling for a component supplier to tell the OEM what are the core substances that are inside your material. So if you needed to make an IMDS declaration, you could use our composition data, and you could check it using the tool that Natalia is showing you to make sure that there's no issues. But effectively, when you're going to give you that IMDS declaration, you're going to say, okay, there's so much nickel, so much steel, or whichever. I'm completely forgetting my my chemicals at the moment. But essentially, you're going to make that declaration, so you can complete your IMDS declaration using this information if you want, and that's what plenty of component manufacturers do. If that hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, I hope so. I think that that clarifies it for me at least. But if there's any further questions, please feel free to hop in. There's a couple other questions from different individuals. Have the proposed EU REACH regulations for control of PFAS been incorporated yet? I think you may have actually shown part of that. Maybe not for
I
PFAS.
can check the regulation number if they have, because they have been, but I can check quickly while you're going through the demo.
Yeah, thanks, Andy, because I know that our compliance team has mentioned this before.
Yeah,
I think it's under materials, but yeah, just do a quick check for me. But I know that we do cover a portion of it, so.
Okay.
Yep, I can cover that in just a moment. Okay, so you carry on that. I'll find the information.
All right, thanks, Andy. And Yeah, sorry, Nate, go ahead.
Yeah, if you just got another question or two, if that's all right. But
Yeah.
if you, all right, how can one help get a material added to the Greenline database?
So there's 2 ways. One way, you send us an email on tech support at kitametals.com. Say, hey, can you please cover this standard? If we don't, producer, etc. If you want to add in your own material information, you would have to go with another solution called Integrator, where essentially the platform looks it's like this, but you have your own material data in, and then you would be able to do all of that as well. So just depends on where you want to go with it. But if it's a standard material, producer data sheet, send us an email and we'd be happy to add it in.
Perfect. Thanks, Nat.
So Nat, the regulation is the main public law, LD 1503. So
is it under
LD
European
space,
Union?
Oh
yeah.
Try it's a ship one. So if you typed in LD space 1503 or just 1503, you'll probably find it. 03. Should be 03. I'll have a quick look while you're carrying on. But she's given me the information. I can do it. Okay.
Yeah, and we can always follow up too after the call if absolutely necessary. But another question that came in the meantime is, can a custom list of substances of concern be created?
So a custom list of substances. So if you have a set of substances and then you want to check that list. Yeah.
Yeah, this is pertaining to plural for, gosh, I'm not going to be able to say this one, perfluoral alloys or forever chemicals. And I butchered the name on that.
Yeah, so this is PFAS chemicals. Yeah. Let me just see if I can get you a nice little demonstration of that. So yeah, carry on. I'll come back to that one. I can do that. I'll build it as an example.
Okay. Great. So in terms of compliance, thanks for asking all those questions. We could go on and on about it, at a later time, but also Andy's going to be working on something. But what I really wanted to also show is how you could calculate LCA and how you could do that very easily with Greenline. So let's say in a perfect world, you didn't have to adhere to California Proposition 65, you're happy with Reach and Ross, and then you wanted to see what is the greenest alternative. You could go back to Material Console, add your materials into LCA. So you're back into Greenline here. You could add in your different indicators. I'm sure everyone on the call knows a lot more about this than I do. I usually just choose, let's say, climate change, human toxicity, energy demand, some important ones over there. And all you need to do is click on calculate and you're good to go. I know that I did choose a lot of them over here, but all of those are quite important. And again, you could always add in your specify the reference here, the subgroup, so then you always have the information that is related to what you're looking for. But in general, you get all your different numbers over here. It's just for everyone to know, size, it's per kilogram. So the referent material size is 1 kilogram. And if I wanted to, let's say, rank the materials, I could very easily just by clicking rank. You could see this GB material is the best one according to all those different indicators that you could see here. You could export all that information. You could even benchmark the material to see, okay, so depending on which indicator that is most important, I could see which one has any greener alternatives very easily just by looking at the green color here. And as I mentioned, you could quickly export that into Excel. Being able to share that with the team is very essential after you doing all your calculations, because of course, you know, you could say, hey, this is a greener alternative, but the materials engineer really needs to take an extra look to see, hey, does this material adhere to all the different design parameters? Does it make sense? Simulations engineer as well with their part in the selection process. So makes it very easy. I just wanted to quickly show the Excel sheet here. Oh, why is that? It usually opens. Let me just try a different way before. Okay. Okay, so just wanted to quickly show you how that looks. You can see the material out in grid is the one that was benchmarked, and then see all the different greener alternatives and so on and so forth. So you could do all your calculations there. You get your numbers, and then you could share it with the team. And just to finish off, save your work and go back to it later on, like I did my safe search and then loaded it back up as well. So again, a lot of different things you could do. It's just very important for you to add your materials into List Builder and add them into LCA for a quick calculation. And before we get into questions, I just have one more thing to show, and I promise we'll start answering those questions. It's our Bill of Materials assessment, what we call our BOM assessment. Very, very easy to use. We try to make it as easy as possible so you could put in your Bill of Materials, making all you need is the following. Let me open up. Let me just add in a file just so I could show what tabs are essential. The level, part number, part name, the material designation. If you want to add in a standard, that's perfect as well. We have those optional fields. So standard, just to quickly specify what you're looking for. Click on submit here. You have all your BOM assessment. Go to the assessment again. Let's say reach. We could add in, I think, up to 4. Let's say California. See that they're compliant. You could also modify the BOM. You could add in different materials as well if you want to go back and put in different equivalents, like the same for compliance assessor. And most importantly, save the information like I just did with the LCA calculations, so you could look back on it later on. Export the data in Excel similarly to LCA. And on top of just adding in different materials, you could even add in a list of substances. It would work the same way, and then you're good to go, which is great. And even before we get to this page, if you have any errors, if a material isn't specified, you always get those different errors to make sure you have a successful BOM at the end of the day. So that's really what I wanted to show. I know that I covered a bunch of different topics. That's the one good thing about Greenline, is that we do cover just classic compliance information to substances, to bill of materials, LCA calculations, and even assessing the compliance for multiple materials at once. So please, if people have time to stay on, ask some questions, and hopefully Andy and I could answer them. Thank you for listening.
In fact, Natalia, if you'd like to show that, if you go to substances, I can tell you how to do the PFAS piece.
Yes, it was
quite
under.
straightforward.
Yeah, it was under substances. I knew it was somewhere, but thanks for.
I had to go and look back. So, country of regulation is United States.
Mm-hmm.
When you get there.
Yeah, it's usually not this slow, everyone. I promise.
It always happens for webinars and workshops, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's the quality of information that makes the difference. Okay.
It's because I added in
Yeah, it's going to do that search before it even comes back and shows you anything. That's
Okay.
right. Yeah. So United States.
Yeah.
Okay, now if we go down here, marine law, there we are, PFAS. There we go. Now hit search.
Oh, now I just
Essentially
added both.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. But anyways, everyone, we do have it.
Yeah, so yeah, if you do all or whatever, then it will give you everything. But essentially, if you look down lower down the page, you'll see the list of substances and the materials that, and you can then see attached materials according to that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna redo the search, everyone, just so I could show you what Andy just mentioned. So Andy, is this is PFAS also under compliance assessor, or is just under substances?
It goes from substances then to materials, so it's always under substances, the way we have it at this point.
So this is where it would be listed, and then what Andy mentioned is to view all the materials with that contains this substance in our solution. Click on view materials, and then you would be able to find all that data there as well.
Awesome. We'll definitely have a few more questions coming in that I'd like to see if we could get asked in the time that we have today. This is a follow-up to the question about, can a custom list of substances of concern be created? The follow-up question is, we have a customer or a statement. We have a customer with specific lists that we would like, or that we would need to check against, like adding another regulation. Nat, does that use case sound like it would be under like the BOM kind of example that you gave?
Yeah, Andy, do you want to take that one?
So just to clarify the question, if we are trying to look for materials that do not contain a certain substances, you could actually do that through advanced search, because you've got that not capability inside the search piece, and you could store that search. So for example, composition, you could put in don't contain, not allowed, for example. If it's based on a certain regulation or a certain industry piece, we can actually add those to the solution. That's how we improve the work we do, and the team are quite used to doing that. It's really be good to understand a little bit more about what we're trying to achieve, and if we could either make that automatic, or even as Nate, with our integrated solution, we can make it more specialized to the materials and information that you have inside your own organization.
Got it. Well, we have some other questions here, and some of them get pretty specific, and I know it's difficult to know the entire database, so I hope these don't throw you off too much, guys. But I'll ask them, and if we need to get back to anybody, that's also acceptable.
Yeah, always.
So maybe not this one, but maybe some of these others. Is CO2 emissions related to component manufacturing processes accounted for in the calculation, or is this number associated with the starting form of the material, which is then processed within our factory?
It's the latter. So we are doing of the origin of that material, from where it comes from the ground, and then it arrives at your plant that you're then going to do additional processes to. If you're looking for methodologies to do that, then I would suggest you look at the EcoInvent data set, but also there's a lot of software tools that use that data in good ways. Gabby would be one that leaps to mind, which is very complementary to the approach we have. So we help you understand what are the best materials and what's the impact of those materials, but then of course they're going to go through your manufacturing process and shipping process, etc., before they get to your final customer.
Great, thanks, Andy. The next one, does the software ranking take into account the fuel source for the GWP ranking? For example, China's power grid is greater than 80% coal-fired electricity versus Germany with less than 50% coal-fired.
this is a regular question. So the default numbers that we give you in Greenline do not take that into account. They're using averages. If you want to understand how that they break down, how they can be compared to and managed to give you local equivalents, we can show you how to do that. We have the great experience of a company who's using steel from Sweden, which is created using hydroelectric with no CO2, compared to cheaper alternatives that are coming from China. So yes, we can help you with that calculation, but the default numbers are really helping you get a ranking to help you decide which of the materials rather than which specific supplier of that material.
Gotcha. I think that covers it, but if there's follow-up questions, please type them in.
Of course. Yep.
What is the list, or what list is being used to define PFAS?
Oh, now let me see. I might have that in particular information. Oh, I'd have to get back. I'd have to get back to you with, because I don't understand the answer completely, so therefore I can't really just pass it on to you. Yeah, but we could get back to you with that. Yeah.
No worries. Sound good. We'll take a note. All right. Couple others here. Maine and Minnesota have passed regulations, but the EU ones are still pending. Oh, I guess that's a statement. I apologize. That's a follow-up here.
Yep. Yeah, so that's PFAS related, yes. And you're quite right. The EU ones are pending. They should come out any week, and we're ready and waiting to add them. Absolutely.
Awesome. Seen one more here. So unless anybody has any others, we might be wrapping after this, but please feel free to type any additional in. So our impurities like cobalt in stainless steel as well reflected in your database. Would the tool flag or warn if a supplier updates his information with content and, for example, adds cobalt for a steel of material scope, or is a regular check manually required?
Great question. So if in our standard reference database, which of course is part of GMP, you will not get the flag telling you that it's changed. If you've set up regulation checks through Greenline and you've done that compliance check, yes, you are going to get the calculation is going to automatically trigger. You're then reliant on looking at those traffic lights to see them. If you wish to have a more automated process, then I'm going to say Integrator is a way of setting up those checks and that automation, particularly with our API. But certainly Greenline and the compliance assessment tool there will allow you to on a monthly basis, you could keep rerunning it and see if there's any changes.
Perfect. Thanks, Andy. And then Natalia, if you don't mind hopping over to the slides, it'll be relevant. I think your last slide has got your contact information.
Yeah.
So the question is, who should we be in contact with for additional information? I wanted to put this slide up there quick. You're happy to reach out to Natalia and Andy directly. We also have a slide after this, which has our contact information for our data ecosystem team at ASM International. I know many of our attendees on the call today are ASM members. You're customers of ASMs, and if you feel more comfortable reaching out to us first to initiate the conversation, happy to do that. If not, please feel free to reach out to Andy and Natalia, and we will stay in very close communication, so we'll know that you're being taken care of, regardless Absolutely. Of who initiates the conversation.
Yeah, just wanted to also add in that if anybody wants to test out the solution, feel free to let us know. Myself, or as Nate mentioned, go directly through ASM. We'll be in contact, so you could test out the the solution for free. You could even send us your bill of materials to say, hey, would this be able to work with your software? So please feel free to do so, and we'd be happy to help and help out with your issues.
Perfect. Well, that's all the questions that I'm seeing for today. Thank you so much, Natalia and Andy, as always. And thank you for everybody's time in the workshop today, and we look forward to the next.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
Take care.